Now let's get to the really depressing stuff. David, you have a horrible, awful story that made me feel terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just terrible what's happened to these people in the UK due to accounting software not working properly. It's put people in jail. It's ruined lives. Somebody committed suicide.
And so so we've been doing this podcast for 6 years now, and we never talked about this story. We never saw it because this story's been taking place for the last 20 years prior to us doing the podcast. And then it wasn't really much in the news the last 4 or 5 years. But now it's bumped up into our radar and into the news this week because British TV, their new British TV channel, ITV, broadcasted a 4-part drama series called Mr. Bates versus the Post Office.
So this is a documentary series that was on TV about this whole thing.
About this whole thing. And that just got broadcast this week, and things have been happening daily. So since the first episode was aired, dozens of new victims have started contacting lawyers to appeal their convictions. Piling on the already, let's think about the math on this, thousands that have been accused of post office branch managers, 700 wrongly handed out criminal convictions, numerous bankruptcies, divorces, and 4 people even took their own lives, Blake, because of this issue.
Okay, so you said this has been happening for decades. Take me back to the beginning. Got it.
So here's the story. So first we'll set the table a little bit on this, right?
Okay.
So you have Fujitsu. So a lot of accountants, listeners here in the States, a lot of people are familiar with their scanners.
Yeah, I got a ScanSnap. Fujitsu ScanSnap. Yeah.
Fujitsu ScanSnap. Well, they're a $20 billion Japanese tech giant, maybe $24 billion. They're monstrous. But they own a lot of software companies all over the world. One of these companies is a UK company that made accounting software called Horizon. And arguably it wasn't accounting software. It was probably more of an enterprise point-of-sale system.
Okay.
Right? So you have this one part of the story is the software, the point-of-sale system.
It has accounting features.
Accounting features, yep. And then you have the UK post office. And so the post office, the way they run it, they have smaller branches, and they almost feel like franchisees. Like, so if you're the manager, a sub-post man or a manager of the smaller branch, under the term of your contract, Blake, operators are liable for the financial losses. So that's why it feels more like a franchise, right? You're taking the responsibility running this smaller postal branch, right?
And so I have to make sure that I collect the proper amount of postage for the letters that I'm taking in through my office.
Whatever services are selling, stamps, who knows, right?
Okay.
So in the olden days, they all ran pen, paper receipts. And everybody's been running these for decades, probably. Hundreds of years in the UK were probably ran this way.
Okay.
In the late 90s, when computers started coming around, they rolled out an accounting point-of-sale system called Horizon. So that is this company that Fujitsu owns. So basically, the point-of-sale would give the main post office visibility to all the revenue due to them. Right? By totaling up all the transactions in the smaller branches, which kind of makes sense. Like you'd want, from an accounting perspective, you'd want to know that information.
Right.
But the system was buggy. Hundreds and hundreds of bugs. Super buggy system. 2 of the bugs were bad enough that they even got names. Right? So I'm gonna mess this up because it's named after a village in Scotland, but it's the Dalmelinton bug. Dalmelinton bug. But anyways, so the reason it's named that is that's where the first victim fell prey to it. So here's the bug.
Okay.
So if you've ever rung up a sale on a point of sale before, you finish the sale, you hit done or total, right?
Yeah.
You finalize the sale. The screen would just freeze. So what are you going to do, Blake, as somebody using a computer when the screen freezes? What's the first thing you do?
Reboot.
You hit the enter key. You hit the enter key again, right? A couple times.
Oh, yeah.
You hit the enter key. Hit the enter key. Well, every time you hit the enter key, it was logging another sale to the ledger.
So I'm trying to get my screen to unfreeze. I'm hitting the button a few times. It finally does, and I don't realize that I've entered multiple transactions now.
Exactly.
Duplicate transactions.
Duplicate transactions to register.
Okay.
And so, for example, the first operator that discovered this, 24,000 pounds they were accused of stealing because it recorded all these incorrect transactions that never happened. Then they have another one called the calendar square bug, which is even worse because the underlying database was just creating duplicate transactions.
Just on its own.
Just on its own. There's a bug.
Okay.
It's creating duplicate transactions. So if you think about it, you have thousands of ledgers or subledgers for all of these sub-post office with thousands, if not tens of thousands, errant transactions that according to a 2015 testimony, the post office to the House of Commons said there's no functionality in Horizon at either a branch post office or Fujitsu to edit, manipulate, or move the transaction data once it's been recorded in branch accounts. So they were claiming in 2015. So they rolled this out in 1999.
Yeah.
In 2015, they were testifying saying nobody could ever edit and fix these problems. That's what they're claiming. 4 years later, they determined it was untrue, and they determined that Fujitsu could access the accounts in an unrestricted, unaudited access. So do you see the problem here? Like the bug, the actual issue that happened?
So you're creating duplicate transactions. The sub post offices, the people running these post offices, they've got to send the money to the post office, right?
Yep.
And so the post office is saying, you didn't send us enough money. You owe us lots of money, right?
Exactly. Because remember the contract you signed that said you're financially responsible?
Right. And you're stealing from us.
Yes. So for a decade plus, the post office destroyed thousands of people's lives. Accusing them of theft, demanding they repay the money. They worked with the UK police to put people in jail for theft.
How many people are we talking about?
So about 700, but it's about 3,000. 700 were convicted. People were put in jail. There's suicides, divorces, bankruptcies. It's very broad. It's shocking how long this went on. And the other shocking part of it, of course, the post office Fujitsu were informed about the bugs a long time ago.
And they didn't fix it. And they didn't
fix it.
What, did they not connect the fact that there were these duplicate transactions and then the criminal prosecutions? And I mean,
well, yeah. And so in 2006, a tech-savvy branch operator, he happened to have a computer science degree, and he was like an earlier tech adopter. So he rolled out his own point of sale at one time, some DOS-based point of sale, and a couple branches had this DOS-based point of sale. And just like anybody doing good technology rollout, you would run both side by side. So in 2006, he ran both point of sales side by side and discovered the problem with the double recording that was happening. He went up all the support channels, wind up getting to like a third tier at Fujitsu, and got a reply back that said, "We managed to replicate the bug. We know about it." He asked Fujitsu when it was going to warn the network of sub-postmasters, like let everybody know this bug exists. And they said, "No, we won't do that. We'll just let it carry on." So they refused to tell all the other locations about this. And then, coincidentally, of course, he was terminated in 2006, accused of stealing 13,000 pounds because the register didn't do it.
Wow.
So even in that year, the post office and Fujitsu, they didn't care. And even that year, 51 more people got prosecuted just in that year alone for these thefts.
What is this just like a problem with British culture or something? Like, how could the post office prosecute people for stealing money when they're using reports from a buggy accounting system?
I kind of have that answer. I did some research on that.
Are these just horrible? Were these horrible people running the post office?
Well, I think there's some of this, like how it happened, right? So you have stubbornness, you have egos, there's billions of dollars involved, you have politics. I think it's all that. But based on my research, it's actually the way computer testimony is treated by UK law. Now, we might have to put those disclaimers at the end of the episode because I have no clue about US law. I don't know how this applies. But prior to 1984, so the dawn of the computer age, really, right? To submit computer evidence in court, you had to prove that the computer system basically was perfect. It was working accurately, had no errors. You had to prove that. But then in 1984, the laws changed. So in England and Wales, courts consider computers as a matter of law, to which have been working correctly unless there's evidence to the contrary. Therefore, evidence produced by computers is treated as reliable unless other evidence suggests otherwise. It's the whole innocent until proven guilty applied to computers. Right?
Well, yeah. And in the case of evidence produced by a computer, you are guilty unless proven innocent.
Yes. And so thousands of accusations and prosecutions happened because of this "the computer was right" mentality.
Wow.
Think about that. We all have clients. We have QuickBooks. We're syncing data in from different apps. Every time I turn around, some data is incorrect.
Yeah.
Like it's mind-boggling that it's at that.
And you said people committed suicide. Like, how much money was at stake in a lot of these cases?
Oh, 50, 60, 100,000. These were they're cash register shortages.
But I mean,
right?
hundreds of thousands of pounds is a lot of money. Yeah.
For probably one of these operators that was only making 20,000, 25, whatever it might be.
They're a small business owner. Yeah. Wow.
And so where does this bring us to today? So it's being called one of the biggest miscarriages of justice in British legal history. And the British have done a lot of bad things in the past, so that's pretty. Yeah. Currently, there are settlements happening, payouts are happening, but even the payouts are introducing more controversy because they're determining, do they want to tax it? Should it be taxed? There's arguments about the taxation on the payouts. People are being exonerated, so people are being let go of prison. As of January 10th, so this is 2 days ago, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, he announced new legislation, and I'll quote unquote, to make sure those convicted are swiftly exonerated and compensated. Government officials said a bill would be introduced within weeks to grant an acquittal this year. And now criminal investigations may have started against the executives at the post office and Fujitsu. And there is an effort to roll out a new cloud-based point of sale to replace the Horizon system. But even that now, that rollout has been delayed and hasn't happened. So the UK Post Office just had to write another check for £36 million to Fujitsu and to keep them around until 2025. So bringing the total spent on Fujitsu's buggy software to £2.3 billion. Like, this is that money going around, right?
Yeah.
It's money.
It's like the money that what California has put into its new accounting system that still doesn't work.
So, so for me, I think there's lessons here, right? Like,
people suck. I mean,
always. Well, yeah, that is that. But I mean, I think you can't assume that you have to work from the other way. Computers and tech are always wrong. Work from that direction, right? You have to sanity check stuff.
Well,
there's always bugs. There's always bugs.
You got to think that people at the post office and people at Fujitsu knew that there were these bugs, and they knew that people were getting prosecuted, and somebody had to have connected this and figured it out and probably covered it up and didn't want to tell the truth because they'd done all this horrible stuff. They'd put people in jail. They'd ruin people's lives. Nobody wanted to clean it up. In
the beginning, when maybe you discovered something was wrong, you could have took the right path.
Right.
And just admitted, oh, we signed a bad contract or we got bad software, it fixed the bug. Like, nobody wanted to fix it. And just for a decade, let people be put in jail. The other thing, too, is I think the takeaway is be part of communities. Apparently, all these sub-postmasters were kept in silos. So they had no idea all these other sub-postmasters were being accused.
Right.
So be part of communities and know what your cohorts are going through.
I feel like because of a lot of this happened before social media, before online communities existed. I feel like now it would be harder for this to happen because people would get together and say, hey, we're not all stealing. Right?
Yeah, and you see this like tax Twitter. Somebody's discovered something wrong you see it with the QuickBooks communities, and everybody piles on. I've had that problem too. But yeah, it's a very disturbing article. It's not even an article, it's lots of articles I pulled together. But so if anybody wants to try to find the show, it's called Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, is the 4-part drama. But I don't think this is the end of this story, but it's shockingly disturbing.